So batch epics, as I told you, this is epics that you want to run in batches. Okay, so that's a simple concept. You can start it on your own, or you can start a batch epics through a epics scheduler, whatever you want. So if you want a batch epics to get executed on a defined frequency, that's your choice. But if you just want to run a batch once, that is also fine. Like if I just want to do a data cleansing activity once, so that's something which depends on me. If I want to repeat that data cleansing activity every month, that is also something that I want to do. So if you want to have a batch apex on a frequent basis, then you will put it inside an apex scheduler, which we have already discussed. Okay, now let's understand what is this specifically the batch apex thing. So batch apex, as we discussed the other day, it's about processing small batches of data instead of doing a full big process. You can process small batches of the data. All right, so batch apex requires you to use an interface which is called database.batchable. Okay, so you'll have to use database.batchable interface. So while you're writing the class, implement database.batchable interface. So this is what you have to do. All right, this is one thing that we have to do. Second, what we have to do is we have to define three methods. So a batch apex has three methods. Okay, first method is a start method. Okay, so basically start method is for us to supply the data, to form the batch. This is basically for forming the batch. Okay, and it usually requires a query. Okay, so a query for the batch. So any SQL query. So this is one method. This is the first method. Second will be the execute method. Okay, it will process the records. Okay, so all the records which you passed through the start method using the query, those will be processed in the execute method. Okay, and this execute method will happen continuously in terms of batches. Okay, that is what will happen. And then finish method. Okay, so finish method is something this executes at the end of all batches. Once all the batches have been processed, let's say you have 1000 records. Okay, you have written a query to form batches of 100 each, right? So execute method will run 10 times. Okay, so this execute method, right? After this execute method running 10 times, your finish method will run finally. So this can be, for an example, you can send using this method, you can send an email with confirmation that all the batches running have, has been completed. So that sort of thing. In case you want, you can actually do this. Okay, or you can just, if you do not want any finish method to work on, you can just leave it blank, but you'll have to define the finish method. Inside that you don't put anything, that's fine, no problem. All right, so let's create a small example using this batch apex and work on that. All right, so let's see how things will work. Okay, so here you see my screen. So let's go and write a batch apex class. It's pretty simple. Just go to setup, develop apex classes, create a new class. Let's say public class b1 implements database dot batchable. Okay, and here you have to supply the object for which you want to run the batch. Okay, so I just want my batch to run for any object. So this is, I'm just defining it as a parameter. I will supply which object I want to run the batch for. It can be for account, it can be for contact, anything. Okay, so I just write it as a subject. Now it requires a query, right? So you'll have to write, you'll have to define a string for the query. You can hard code the query, but I actually do not want to hard code the query here. I will pass in the query as a parameter. Okay, so we just say public final string query. Okay, so this is a variable. I'll pass in the query for this. Okay, public final okay, so this is going to be my s object. So from using this string I'll pass in the s object. This will be my field and this will be the value, field value. So what value I want to assign to the field. Final string. All right, 4 variables I want to be passed. All right, let's try this. Public b1 string q string. So these are the parameters which will be passed. Yes. String f string v. Query equals q. Okay, so these 4 parameters I am passing. All right, so whenever you want to execute this batch, you'll have to supply these values from your side. Okay, and these are the variables, these 4 are the variables which are going to be used inside the code. So you supply the value to these 4 whenever you are executing this batch, and uh, this this is the setting which will happen. So query equals becomes equals to q. Okay, so this is what is supplied by the end user. All right, the same way uh, s object equals s, field equals f. Which field the end user wants to update, he can define it at the right time of running the batch. So this will become a batch which can run for any object, any field. Okay, I could have easily hard coded this thing, but I'm actually trying to show you how you can actually pass the values at the real time. Okay, so for field and these things. Okay, so these are the field value, and the field value also needs to be passed, which is v. Okay, so that's it. Okay, now coming to this, I am done with the parameters which are required. Okay, now coming to my three methods which we talked about. So there are three methods which we need to use here, right? So the first method is the start method. Okay, so this start method basically has a return type of database dot query locator. Okay, so database dot query locator is basically it returns, it takes a query. Okay, it takes a query and returns the results of the query. So that is what will be the return type. All right, so it's going to be public database dot query locator. So it's like, as a page reference returns a page, a query locator basically takes a query and returns the results of the query. That's it. Okay, so the start method always have to have a return type of database dot query locator. The return type for that is going to be database dot query locator. Okay, and this you have to write database dot batchable context. Put what we want. That's it. Okay, so this is your start method. Okay, so because this is not a void method, it has a return type. We have to return something. So what are we going to return? We return database dot query locator, supply the query here. Okay, so this database dot query locator will execute this query, okay, and return the results. Got it? So that is how simple it is. It always requires a database dot query locator return type. Okay, so you'll have to, in the start method, you will have to supply the query. Okay, from where I'll get the query? I've just written the query here. From where will we get the query? The query value we are going to supply at the time of execution. All right. So now coming to the second method. Second is the execute method, the one that we used in Apex scheduler and on the queuable Apex also. Void method. So here the return type is going to be void. It will not return anything. It's just an execute method. Okay. However, you will have to write the same thing, database dot batchable. So this part is common. You can copy from here, put it here. Okay. Now, what do you want to do in this? You just have to write inside this execute method what execution you want, what process you want to be done, that you have to define here. Query will be taken care of in the first method. Querying of the data, forming the batches is taken care of here in the first method. This one takes care of your execution. So once the query, the data has been returned in small batches, then what processing of that data you want to do using that batch, that comes under execute. Okay, and the third method is going to be public void finish. Same. Okay, okay, so we are kind of done with this. Looks okay. It should be database dot get query locator and number 60. Sorry. Okay, small mistake. It always needs to be a global class. Okay, and the global variables. Okay, so all the batch apex need to have global interface. So instead of using public, use global here. Us must implement the global interface method void execute. Okay, there's one more small mistake here. We'll have to give the list of S object here. So the first method, start method, we supply the batch, right? In the execute method, you have to just define one more parameter, list of S object. Okay, so it requires one more parameter to be defined. You can call it anything. Let's say I call it batch. Yes. That's it. Got it? So you just have to define one parameter for the list of S object, or basically for the batch of data which is returned from this query. All right, so this needs to be done. That's it. So my batch is ready. What I have not done here is I have not defined anything inside the finish method, and I have not even defined anything for the execute method. So let's put some code for the execute method. Finish method, we are not going to put any code. You can put, that email thing, or outbound email message or something like that. You can try it later on. Let me put some code for the execute method. Okay, so let's say I say for S object O within batch. Okay, so it's going to be a batch. It's multiple records, so I'm just writing a for loop for it. I say for S object in the batch, I want to update the field value to this. Okay, so object name will be supplied by the end user. Which field needs to be updated, that is going to be supplied, and the value is going to be supplied. Okay, so I just have to do this small thing. I just have to say O dot put field value. That's it. Okay, so we have talked about this put method earlier. So O dot put field, in this field set this value. That's it. Okay, and then this loop closes. Finally update batch. Okay, so in the execute, what happens, it goes and checks for the records in the batch, updates the field value. Okay, and finally the loop runs for all the records, and finally that batch completely gets updated as a DML operation. That is what we are trying to do. Line number 27. Okay, we should also have in global. Okay, global word finish. Okay, 1 minute. So this is not required. Field value. All right. So that's it. All right. So the batches are formed in the start method. Execute method will go and set the value, field value, whatever we have supplied to the field that we have defined, and it will update the batch. That is it. Okay. So let's say we want to run this on account object. All right. So what we'll have to do, we can, execution, for execution, we have to write another method, which is database dot execute batch. Database dot execute batch. Okay, so this can be called from some other method, but since we're not writing any other method now, we are just gonna okay. So this is what I should write: database dot execute batch, new, name of the batch, the class that has the batch in it. All right. So now what I'm going to do is, because I'm not going to write any other method for this, I'm simply going to use the developer console for executing the batch apex. Doable, pretty much doable. All right. So let's go and let's go to the developer console. And you just have to say id batch instance id equals, so return it will return the batch instance id. Okay, and you will say database dot execute batch. So this is a method which we are going to use, execute batch. All right, new v1. Okay, and v1 requires a few parameter values, right, which are q, e, e or s, f and v, right? Now before you run this, you also have to make sure that you're supplying the values for q, s, f and v, right? So let me say string q equals, write your query here. Let's say select industry from account limit 10. Fine. So this query will form batches of 10 records each. It will select industry. So this is the query. Okay. You can have more complex query, but I'm just using a simple one. Let's just, it selects the industry from the account and it updates the industries. Let's write string s equals account. So I'm talking about account object. Okay. So if you go to the code, you see where we have said s object s in batch, s object o within batch. Now this s object here is account, because we have supplied s equals account. Say string, what other string I have to supply? The field, which field I want to update. F equals, let's say industry, and string v equals, so what value you want to supply. If I want to supply consulting, that's it. So all these four parameters are given: string q, string s object equals account, query is this, and field that I want to update is industry. The value that I want to be updated is to consulting. All right. So this code or this batch should check my accounts and update their industry to consulting in batches. So you could have done anything whatever you want. Let me just execute. Okay. batch apex executed, success, fine. So if you see this, it got executed twice, right? One success, second success, right? So it's not just one batch which got executed. We have, I think, somewhere between 10 to 20 accounts. That's the reason why it got executed twice. One batch had 10 accounts. Okay. Now you can just go and check if that has actually worked. Your batch accounts. Let's open. No. Just give me one moment. Goes to account, industry, critical values. One moment, huh? Execute. Count industry, that's fine. That's okay. 1 minute. Let's say description. Okay. Description. Field value equals V. History from accounts to account movement of this. Okay, let me try updating description. Execute. So for this, it should go and update this field to this value. So we put for O within the scope O dot put field to field value update. Description from account and edit this field to description edited. There's nothing wrong with this code, everything is fine. Otherwise it would have thrown some error here. Update is not happening because of what? What can be the reason for the updates not happening actually? The batch is also running, it says success also. So there's no problem with what variables we are supplying. Then where is the problem? QSFV. So these are the four variables we require. QSFV, that's it. So we are supplying that. All of them are strings. We are doing that. Database.query with query locator queries the data. Query equals Q. This does not find any record. Select description from account. Spelling is correct? Yes. Limit 10. Okay, just give me a moment. Let me just log out of this and try in some other instance. Not sure if there is some problem with this. Classes. Okay, it seems there was some issue with that instance. The same code seems to be working absolutely fine on my Salesforce developer org. Okay, so I've written the same class here. I just copied the entire class. Mm, maybe some validation or something was stopping it there. Not very sure. So we have written the same class here. Okay, I have got the same class. Uh, the value update we are doing fine. Now I go to the developer console and I will try to update the field. All right. So just go to the developer console and execute the anonymous code. Okay. So we supply string. What all values I have? QEFV. Q is the query. So select description from account. Let's say account is what I want to update. Limit it to 10. Okay. Then write the other string e equals account. So account is the object that we are talking about. Third string f is the field. So the field that I want to update is description. and the fourth field is the value. Just got updated. Let's say this is a value I want to put in there. Okay, and I say ID batch instance ID equals database dot execute batch b1 q e f v. Right. Description field that I want to update is description, and I say just got updated. Okay, rest everything is fine. So I execute it. The batch gets executed. Now let's see if the records have got updated. So let me go to one of the accounts. See, the description changed to just got updated. Fine, my batch has run and it has updated the field which I wanted to update. All right. So if it's a long thing, basically what we have done is there are very simple stuff. We have just updated the field. But if it's something that you want to do on all your records and it's a long running query, uh, so you can just try and do that in batches. So we just created very small batch because we have a small data size. We created small batches of 10 records. You can create bigger batches, 5,000, 10,000 records, and process them that way. Clear? Please let me know if anyone has a question or doubt on this batch apex thing.
Jeet, can you show me the program again?
Code, here it is.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So that's it for the batch apex. All right. So tomorrow, once we meet, we will talk about testing apex. How do we test apex? All right, and why do we need to test apex? And I will also share some reference material with you. So that's what we're going to discuss tomorrow. All right.